Okay, so you got these muscles. Now, how do you repair muscles? How do you get muscles to grow? What does it take? What is actually growing? What's actually doing this and such? So, uh, thinking about in the future, it probably won't be steroids and such, but maybe introducing artificial genes. And I think with the CRISPR technology and then some of the other technology they have out there, this might be possible and such. Um, Basically, when you think about it, within the nucleus of the cell, and skeletal muscle cells have many nuclei, you go in there and you insert the gene that you want. Let's say from an ancient type that you know to be a faster twitch, a stronger muscle type and such. Uh, and so you cut out the one and insert the other, and boom, stronger muscle. Uh, Another way is to use something like IGF, which is insulin-like growth factor. So it's insulin-like because it's related, it looks like insulin and such, and it's produced in response to growth hormone. And then it triggers other cellular activities like bone growth and everything, but also muscle growth and such. So, but that's another way. Uh, how do you get a muscle to grow? Uh, First, you have to get the satellite cells, and these are the nuclei. Well, they're really these little cells that are living out there in that fascia, if you will. And when you damage the muscle, they get a signal and they release or deposit nuclei. And the more nuclei, the more messenger RNA, the more protein. The more protein, and the protein is the myosin that makes the muscle grow. Boom, bigger muscle. So you can recruit more satellite cells, one way. Another way is to use pro-growth factors that actually promote the satellite cell such, or you use an inhibitor, something that would inhibit these things, such as one known as myostatin. Uh, or you use a myostatin inhibitor, if you will. So they've done research on this, and they've done the gene research and such, and they've tried it in rats and mice and such. And they take a mouse or a rat and they do the treatment on one leg and leave the other leg as the control, and they can see the change within that one leg after doing these treatments and such. So they've shown that that works. Uh, Myostatin inhibitors. Myostatin keeps your muscles from growing. It prevents your muscles from growing. So you find something that would inhibit the myostatin. Now, there are examples in nature where the myostatin has been naturally inhibited, or it's deficient or missing. And there are a couple of examples of animals where this has happened, and one or two humans and such. So myostatin is called GDF. I go with growth differentiation factor 8. That's how I refer to it. So it causes your muscles to get smaller. So when you're exercising and working out trying to grow muscles, myostatin's working against you because your brain says this is the size that the muscle must be. If you try to get too big, it brings it back down to where it's supposed to be. So they have they've discovered that it actually is an antagonistic of the insulin-like growth factor. But they have found naturally occurring examples. The Belgian blue cow is an example of one with a defective myostatin gene such. So learning about this, maybe this is a way to treat muscle debilitating diseases like the dystrophies and such, or the muscle loss in cancer patients or HIV patients and such. So it's a thought. They've been thinking about it now for almost 23, 25 years. So why? What's some other reasons? Maybe not just muscular dystrophy, but what about space travel? The reason your muscles work is because it's working against gravity. And when you get into an environment of no weight, now your muscles are useless. So it's kind of like being a couch potato, really, when you're in space, if you think about it. So these people that go to space, they have to rigorously exercise so that they don't lose their muscle mass. Okay, so if you just stop and if you sit on the couch for 2 weeks, your muscles actually shrink. However, using weight resistance training, you can get your muscles to grow. It's just how the body responds. So how do you get your muscles to grow? You need more myosin. How do you get more myosin? You need more nuclei. The muscle cell nuclei, they don't divide. They don't increase. So you have to get it from those satellite cells. And that's how you get the nuclei to increase. So you exercise. That's the word vigorous. It's not just walking around the mall. You exercise vigorously, and it causes the myosin heads to tear. That damage then attracts the satellite cells, and they move into that area and they deposit nuclei. And then the nuclei transcribe and translate more myosin. And so by exercising vigorously, you can get the myosin to increase. So you get a heterotrophic growth of the muscle. More nuclei, bigger muscles because of more protein synthesis. Now you got to put in the raw elements. You got to put in the amino acids and the other things for it to build. But you have to do the exercise to get this to happen. When it comes to type 1 and type 2, right? So you saw in the graphs in the earlier videos what changes between a type 1 and type 2 when you have a spinal injury and such. So can you get this recruitment? One way they've tried it is by taking the nerves that are going to a slow twitch and move it over to a fast twitch to see, or vice versa, to see if it works. It's a little bit, not much. So in a spinal injury, you lose contact with the brain. So you're not getting this neural input from the brain, this action potential. That causes the type 1 myosin to not be expressed. So that when you look at a muscle, its majority of the fibers in it are type 2. You're not growing more type 2, it's just that the type 1 stops being expressed. So that type 2 is the fast twitch, and it is the anaerobic, right? So it's waiting to do a job for a brief moment. But when you continuously use a muscle, you're continually putting neural input to it, you get more of the type 1. So you need this input to get this expression of this type 1 isoform and such. So you could use a TENS unit, electrical stimulation. That might be a way to do it. They've worked on that. So they've noticed that people who sit around have more of the 2X. That's when you think 2X, I think caveman. More of the 2X than the 2A. So there's a difference there by, so you sit around, you don't really use the muscle, but if you had to for one brief moment, it's there. So and then it gets fatigued pretty quick. So how do you get this? How do you get these types to change? Well, doing heavy weight loads and doing repetitions of heavy weight loads, you can actually get the 2X to stop being expressed and the 2A to be expressed. That's what's happening right there. So by the heavy weight load repetitions, by you demanding it to work like that, you actually can affect which protein is being expressed in the nuclei. So you do that, you work out heavily for a month, and you can get that conversion. And you get a little bit bigger muscle too. A process of tapering is a thing that they've tried to do. They've worked at it and such. So you work out heavily for a period of time, and then you rest for a period of time. And when they do that, they actually see that the type 2X returns, and you get more of the 2X. So you get actually a little bit bigger muscle. So you work out heavily, and then you rest. Then you work out heavily, then you rest. That's kind of a way to do that. So more fast twitch, bigger, faster, stronger. Can you get a slow to become a fast? That really, they haven't looked at it too good. But there's this protein called PPAR delta, and you ought to look into it. It is pretty fascinating, and it's one of the genes that actually regulates fat metabolism. Is PPAR delta and such. And they've noticed that this actually allows you to burn more fat, so you get a leaner, a more fit individual and such. And so they've done these experiments and such, and they have they've introduced this into these mice. And what they noticed was that they had more slow twitch muscle being expressed compared to littermates. So they were studying fat and fat metabolism, and they came across this by accident. And they actually created these marathon mice. You can look it up. It's pretty fascinating and such. So they actually have a pill. You can take a pill and you can get this PPAR delta, which then can lead to more type 1 muscle being expressed, so you can get that marathon type muscle ratio that you would look for. So why is this cheating in this world of sports and such? It's not for cheating in the world of sports. It's for taking a person who might be bedridden or such, that they're to the point where they can't exercise anymore. And by taking this, it can actually get them to burn the fat and express the type 1, and they don't have to do the exercise. And they can eventually get to the point where they can do the exercise if they wanted to and lead a healthier life. So it's pretty fascinating. Is pretty fascinating and such. They've been doing this for 20 some years. So don't hear about it, do you? There you go.